The amount of negativity I got when I bought my first property. I think I was associated with Trump running for president. Like, I was just hated upon, and I have no idea why. Because it's been the biggest and best investment I've ever made in my life. €19,000 property is now sitting at 65. My name's Arthur, for those of you that don't know, and welcome to Buying Greece, which is my business, helping you buy properties in Greece. I thought I'd jump on today and put down a video about my story, because a lot of people seem to keep asking the same questions, and I thought it's probably about time that people know where I started from, what I've been doing for myself, and why I decided to start this business. So basically, I was born in Greece, 1985. I was born in Thessaloniki, in a little town in the heart of Thessaloniki called Abeloukipous. We migrated to Australia when I was one. I can't remember, but I think I've been told it was one. I have it on good authority as well. Basically grew up here, but ended up going back in 1997 for about a year. My mum got sick. We couldn't then leave. I then did primary school there, but it was a very interesting time for me, seeing the ropes, making some good friends, putting in some groundwork with creating some grounding for myself in Greece and understanding what it means to be Greek. Also being Australian as well, speaking fluent English and fluent Greek at the same time. Ended up leaving Greece, came back, and then started doing the, summer here, summer there, etc., etc. The fact that I stayed there for a year in 97 plays a very big key into this whole process, actually. I finally decided to go back to Greece. I mean, I'd gone numerous amounts of times throughout my childhood and my teens, but once I graduated high school, I was doing a couple of years of uni here, my parents decided to pack up and leave in 2005. They're like, we're done, you've grown up, we can now leave you on your own, which obviously happened in the most dramatic way possible for my mum, being an only child, and her being a WOG mum. So they went back, and I was like, all right, I'll come back for a bit and see how things go. I don't want to live there, but let's just see. So I went back, partied a little, travelled a little, and enjoyed life there. But there was always in the back of my head that the army could catch me. And lo and behold, as I was leaving Athens to come back to Australia, I get nabbed at the airport, thrown in for interrogation, and asked about where I'm going and why I haven't been served. Why I haven't served in the army, because I was due to serve 2 years ago, and essentially got held and arrested in Greece. Passport taken off me, blah, 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 blah. That was a very fun time. Had to stay in the country. I then got drafted in May. I went in, I believe, March or May. At which point I went in with my uncle, who is even currently a military judge. I was meant to serve in Kastoria, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of Thessaloniki. Drove up to the military base, signed some paperwork, left on his own command, and then he was like, we need to go down to the military hospital to get you released, essentially. So went to the military hospital, standard Greek stuff, sit over here and wait, pops back out and goes, do you want 6 months leave or 12 months leave? And I was like, I'll take 12. Leaves, comes back, and he's like, here you go, you're suffering from whatever. That got me out of the army, couldn't get out of the country, although his brother, another uncle of mine, was high up in the government on border force. And obviously he opened up the borders and I left. I probably shouldn't be saying any of this, really, but long story short, in that time frame of me remaining in Greece, because I had to, I was there for till May, and then I was like, stuff it, I'm here, I might as well sit through summer while I'm here and whatnot. I got a job, which obviously ended up allowing me to get an afimi, which then I got my taftota. I started to become a Greek citizen. I opened up a bank account. I had all these groundings happening for me without even realizing that it would lead to this process. So I became essentially a Greek citizen, even though I was just there kind of on hold until I could leave again. But it was really interesting to see, as an adult working in Greece, working 6-day weeks and making €588. And that was in 2005. I was working at a clothes store. And I remember going, this sucks. But I understood the mentality of the Greeks. I understood what it meant to live there, work there, pay taxes, deal with the government, do all that stuff, which inevitably helped me whilst I decided to start buying properties in Greece. So moving the story forward, I then returned back to Australia, continued to go in and out of Greece, albeit up until now I was using the Greek taftota, so they wouldn't really know. Now I've dealt with the Greek embassy, everything's been cleared up and blah, 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 blah. I remember around about 2018 having a conversation with my mum about what I wanted to do with regards to investing, because I didn't really have enough to throw my stuff in Australia. I wanted to, but my theory was I don't want to lock myself down for 30 years with something that isn't going to be my dream home. that I can't make some money out of, and that isn't really going to make any progression for me. And then I can't really do much else after I've locked myself down. I would have bought an apartment for whatever, 400, whatever it was, 350, 2017 that I could get, with a 10% deposit, tied in for 30 years at a fixed and a variable, whatever it is, which would have made my life a little bit harder. And I was like, what's the return here? I don't understand why I would do that. Do I want to live in an apartment for the rest of my life? No. Do I want to, is this a dream home of mine? No. Is this something that I'm really passionate about? No. And I was like, well, and then my mum said, well, why don't you look at Greece? Now, in the meantime, my parents had already started buying properties in Greece. I had a fair few investments. I'm an only child. Obviously, it's going to fall on me. And she was like, well, you've already got investments here that you're going to have to start taking care of. You need to learn the ropes anyway. And things are cheap. Here's the beautiful thing about Greece that we just went through, which I honestly don't even think we're going to go through ever again in our lifetime. We might, I hope we don't, for the sake of the country. But it's almost like we hit this level of Bitcoin circa 2010. And people who were smart enough to buy in the last 5 years are going to see the exponential growth over the next 10 years. Because I saw the same patterns happen as I did with Bitcoin. People would laugh at it. People would say it's a stupid thing, that it's wasting your money, and this and that. Someone even bought and paid for pizzas with 25 Bitcoin, I think it was, back in the day. I was a pizza delivery guy at the time. I was going through college, and we were laughing about it like, oh my God, that pizza guy's such an idiot. He just accepted 24 fake coins for pizzas. Now, what does he care? It was 2 pizzas, but 24 Bitcoins. What's that worth now? 1 point something? And here's the thing. I feel like because of what's happened over the last 10 years in Greece, that the Greek property market was basically Bitcoin circa 2010, round about 2015 onwards. Here's why. 2008, we had the GFC, right? 2015, we had a financial crisis in Greece as well. Bank shut down. I was there. The bank shut down for 2 weeks. There was lines outside of the banks as if it was the hottest new nightclub in town. And it was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. And I was walking up like I had the red carpet treatment because I put in my Commonwealth Bank, ANZ Bank, whatever it was, and the machine would just be like, and everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, oh, this is a very interesting situation. I don't want to be here. So we had the 2015, and then on top of it, you had COVID, locked down the world, let alone the country. So all of a sudden, Greece plummeted, especially the real estate market. So you could pick things up for scraps. Now, unfortunately, these things that you were picking up were from people that didn't have the money to pay inheritance tax, to pay their taxes, to keep up the maintenance, they needed an extra 12,000, 15,000 euro, whatever it was. Wages are 800 euro a month now, whatever it is. So there was opportunities coming up, and my mum said, why don't you look at buying something here? You can buy them very cheap. And hence I started to search for Greek properties in Greece. I remember coming across my first property, which I've still got. I'm actually going back to renovate that. It's my pride and joy. And it was a 48 square meter apartment. And I'm going to see if I can bring up some photos here. I've got some photos of the renovations and some videos. I'm going to try and find them and put them up here. But it was a 48 square meter apartment, 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, obviously 1 bathroom, and you had and 1 living room, but sort of extended. So you could kind of splice it up. Like it's a very long living room. And it was, I can't remember exactly, but I remember being 19,000 euro. And I don't know if that was with the paperwork or without the paperwork, whatever the paperwork was, maybe an extra $2,000 on top of it, whatever it was. But I'm pretty sure it was only 19,000 euro because I took out a personal loan for $40,000 from ANZ. I think I told them I was getting married. And I was getting married, all right, to a freaking house in Greece. I ended up transferring the money there to the bank account that I already had set up. The FME was ready to go. I had the Ftonta ready to go. Because I didn't have a passport. I only got my passport last year, the Greek passport. And went through the whole process. And the whole process took maybe 6 weeks. I got my mum to start the whole process. My uncle was my lawyer. My cousin, it was an accountant. My second cousin was an accountant. So everything just seemed to work out perfectly for me to be able to buy this thing. I landed in Greece, checked the place out, started doing some things that I could in my own because you're not allowed to do anything until they give you the keys, obviously, and also, I mean, you could probably say, oh, let me start the renovations. But the thing is, if something falls through and you've already dumped 5,000 euro of renovations into there, what do you do? How do you get it back? You can't just rip out his bathroom. So I was waiting. And then eventually everything happened, signed, keys in my hand, and boom, off to the races I went. I remember dumping maybe I don't think we did much. I think we only did about €3,500. I think it was about $5,000 all up, where we just changed the doors, the windows, we put in the shutters, the kitchen, the bathroom was actually all right. I think we left the bathroom as it was, but the kitchen was the main thing. Threw out some stuff that they had in there, fixed the floorboards up because they had they were floorboards, but they were kind of crap. They were old, obviously. We just sort of fixed it up enough to be able to rent it out, and we started leasing it out. I think it was for $250. I can't even remember. I think $250, $180, $200, somewhere around there. That property in itself was actually a very big learning lesson for me, because within that first property, the first guy that moved in there was a junkie. Unbeknownst to any of us, it was a junkie. And it was an agent who put him in there, obviously not knowing. He slipped through the cracks. I mean, you wouldn't have known. But it turned out that he was a junkie. Junkie who paid his rent on time every single month. Like, we never missed a rent from him, which is why we never really thought anything of it. Never made any fuss. But something happened, because there was old things hanging around on the balcony. To give you guys an understanding, this apartment was on an apartment building where you got shops underneath and you got apartments above, but they've only got one floor of the apartments. So above us is nothing, which is actually quite perfect, because in the heart of the city where there's nowhere else to build, I've got now the air, as they call it. So if a property developer wants to come in and build on top of it, and we all agree, myself and the other parties who own on that building, well, then what happens is they knock everything down. They've got to give you a brand new apartment with the same dimensions, and you can probably barter a little bit more. So it's always best if you have that ability to buy something that's got the air above it, mate, jump on it. And especially for $19,000, I was like, this is a no-brainer for me. Obviously it's going to happen, and it did. Coming back to the story, there was an old stove, or there was an older heater. They had this old heater made out of iron or whatever it was. Anyway, got rid of that because we were like, this is dirty, this is old, get rid of it, whatever. And then a few other bits and pieces, and one day my mum would go back and check up. She's like, oh, that thing's gone, I wonder who's moved that. And then that other thing's gone, and da-da-da. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hang on a second. And I can't really remember what had happened, but essentially we realized that this guy was a junkie and that he was selling the stuff, which was old. I was going to get rid of it, in all honesty. I didn't care that he sold it, power to him, because realistically I was going to throw it out. He was selling it and then giving me the money in rent. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I was just going to throw it out anyway. But so I didn't really lose. But it was the whole point of, hang on a second, this guy's selling my stuff. And then eventually I had friends there, and I got my uncle involved, who was a lawyer, and say, listen, this and this and this. And then we essentially just changed the locks. And then I think he resurfaced after about 3 weeks. I was like, oh, I can't get into the place and blah, blah. And Mum's like, yeah, you're out, man. You're done. So that was my first experience with real estate in Greece. And it was a great lesson, because I learned what to do, what not to do, how to vet people properly, what to expect, how the legal process works, especially when you need to kick someone out, how much renovations cost, like just everything. And on top of it, the property now, after he moved out, we put someone else in for a couple of years, up the rent obviously and all that kind of stuff, and then he moved out, and then I did some more renovations to bring it right up to scratch, and I removed the floorboards, dumped, I can't even remember how much, but I think there was about 25 bags of cement that went into that joint to just raise the level so that we could put tiles above it. Completely redid the bathroom. Looks spectacular. I was so happy about that bathroom. Changed some more things into the kitchen, painted it, all that kind of stuff, and then upped the rent and finally got someone decent in there. And ever since then, it's been light upkeep, and I mean very light. I've just sealed the roof. I'm about to just seal it again. Because it's right on top and there's nothing above it. Obviously, all the rain falls on the roof above mine, so it's just good to seal it every now and then, just for my own benefit. Because if water starts going through, forget about it. And I think sealant is like €200 or something. You just literally paint it on. I do it myself on it. It was interesting because I learned a lot of things about the buying process, the legal process, things that I understood how Greeks lived and operated, and what they believed and what they expected, which is completely different to the Western civilization, the Western cultures. We've got it made here. First and foremost, looking for a property in Greece is I don't have any hair left. It's because of that. I had a full set of hair. Now I don't, after 2017, because I just pulled it all out dealing with Spitogato. And because all of a sudden you're getting photos of the ceiling, and you're getting photos of the doorknob this close, and you're getting photos of half the toilet bowl at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And I'm like, what am I looking at, man? Like, what is going on here? And I started to notice a lot more things on when I started to look at more properties throughout the years, because I bought a few more. In fact, I'm going back this year to renovate. Those of you who have been following my story, I'm going to throw videos up of these when I'm there anyway. But I started to notice things and see things from Westerners' perspective and blending it in with a Greek's reality. And I was like, oh, this needs fixing. This needs changing. This could be done differently. Why are they doing this? We do this. Why is this involved? Also, they don't have this. Why am I expecting this? You know, it's understanding how the country works, how the government operates, how the mentality works of the Greek, and how to deal with things. Because there's a lot of fear around that country. You talk to anyone, someone has some relative who knows best about the negatives that happen in that country, even though they may not have been to that country in about 20 years, may never have invested in that country, but Jimmy's girlfriend's auntie's dog's second cousin's mother's boyfriend told him that this happened to someone they know. So now all of a sudden it's concrete. And now anyone who does it, you're an idiot, you're going to lose money. The amount of negativity I got when I bought my first property, I think I was associated with Trump running for president. Like, I was just hated upon, and I have no idea why, because it's been the biggest and best investment I've ever made in my life. I'm not even joking. I'm not even trying to sell anything here. Like, it was the biggest and best investment. That 19,000 euro property with, let's just call it 30, right? Because of all the things I've done, which it hasn't been 30. Probably more like 25, but stuff it. Let's call it 30, right? 30,000 euro is now sitting at 65. Got it appraised last year at 65. Not to mention the rent that I've taken in from it. It hasn't remained empty. The only reason, it has remained empty, but on my accord, not because people didn't want it, because I wanted them out so I could renovate. It's just going up. Like, and the rent's about to go up as well. I've just told one of the guys who was in there for 3 years, I said, listen, man, you need to move on because I just want to renovate it. He wasn't going to pay the prices that I want. And granted, it needs, you know, I just want to change some things and try something else that I've done with all the other properties that I think can up the rent. From there, I was like, well, let's try something else. You know, I bought a shop during COVID and I was like, let's convert this into a studio apartment. It's right next to the White House. It's right next to the White Build Tower, whatever it's called. Right near the water, probably a 2-minute walk by the water. In fact, if you get out on the street and look down, you can see the water. But anyway, it's in a very nice area. And I was like, all right, let's just see if we can turn this into a studio apartment. And we could. And it's, again, I had a student nurse in there who is now a working nurse, and she's been in there since day one. Again, no issues. I bought that for 14,000 euro. It's a 30 square meter shop that now has turned into a studio apartment, basically brand new. I got everything and just rebuild it. And I think it would have cost me, again, 14 for the shop, 22 all up, 22,000 euro. The thing's sitting at 45 last year. Plus the rents that I've made back. I'm talking about 10 to 12% return investments. And I've done it a few times since then as well. So I've figured out a little way to do this. I also have people that I work with. I have the accountants, the lawyers, the solicitors, my builder in Thessaloniki, you know, the suppliers, materials. I'll go from the same people. Furnishings, I go from the same people. Like I also know that they're not going to treat me differently because I'm Australian with dollars. At the end of the day, people are going to try and rip you off, yes, but you just say no. I actually got a Greek in to quote me for a job because I had that builder that I've got who I'm just sticking with for as long as he wants to build. He can do my stuff. I have no, and I don't even, I'm just like this, and you'll go, yeah, cool, it's this much. I'm like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like, that's how much trust and faith I have. He's also my neighbor. I've known him for 20 years. But I remember getting a Greek guy in. And lucky I had my mum there at the time because I was a little bit naive. And I think he cottoned on to the fact that I was naive. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what we want to do, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, goes away. A couple of days later, he's like, yeah, look, it's going to be 8,000 euro just for the labor alone. Excuse me? And he's like, yeah, that's how much I want. And my mum's like, 8,000 euro. It's going to take, how long is it going to take you? And he's like, I don't know, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, so you want 400 euro a day? And he was like, yeah, well, you know, that's the price, that's the going price, da, 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 da. I think it would have ended up being about 12,000 euro by the time I paid it off, his offside and the materials and all that. So I'm like, I bought the shop for 14, what, is this guy fucking serious? And then my other build, the builder that I've got now was like, no, man, it's going to cost like $5,000. $5,000 for everything, materials, labor, everything. Now, granted, I'm not going to go with the first person that gives me a quote, right? What if there's people out there that are like, I don't care, I don't care. Just whatever, get it done. And this guy's taking you for a ride. So I've started understanding what the going rate is. I speak fluent Greek, and I speak Greek. Not just like, Ella, this machete doesn't govi. I speak like, Κατάλαβες, you know. I speak Greek. When I started to acquire a lot more properties, I was like, I'm going to need someone to take care of these because obviously my mum is 70. So I've got a team together, lawyer, accountant, blah, blah, blah. And then I started getting a lot of people asking me, how do you do this? How do you do that? What can I do here? Oh, the consulate said, forget about the consulate. Oh, the lawyer, why are you going to the lawyer? The lawyer's just speaking to another lawyer in Greece. I tried to call a lawyer up the other day. He was like, I want $380 just to speak to you. And I'm like, okay. Oh, and then it's this much to do this, and then we charge per hour if things go wrong. The lawyer was like, I said, oh, is it you know, how are things to buy there? Because I wanted to see what their prices are. I wanted to understand what's going on. Oh, yeah, look, it's very bad, you know, da-da-da-da, and they're going to try and screw you, and they're going to try and this and da-da-da. This is my price, and then if it all goes well, which it probably won't, but then I charge per hour. So I'm like, so there isn't a standard price? So, I mean, I could be $7,000 in, and all of a sudden you're like, well, this needs another $2,000. And what do I do? Say no and lose the $7,000, or continue just throwing money, hoping that it's going to finish? And I thought, I'm going to start my own business. People need help. People need someone on the ground there, someone who goes there, someone who speaks the language, someone who's done it, not just signs paperwork, someone who actually knows what it's like to invest in property, to build something, to renovate something, to buy something, to manage something. I don't hand it over to a real estate agent. I did the first time, put a junkie in there. The second time I was lucky with, I got that nurse. But then after that, last year, one of the other properties that I acquired not long ago, I went to a real estate agent nearby and I was like, I want to rent this out. And he goes, you won't get much more than 350. In fact, he goes 350 at a push, but he's like, I can give it away today for 300. Yeah, in fact, he called me up about an hour after dropping off the keys. He goes, listen, I got someone here, 300, I can squeeze it out to 310. Today, what do you say? And I said, no, it's worth over 400. You're not going to get that. You'd be lucky to get 350. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to let it go for 310. And we didn't. And lucky I didn't. Because all of a sudden I was like, well, how much better do I need to be here? What's the difference between me and the place there's a place that are making, you know, the money that I want. So I started to look and I started to do what they were doing, and then I started to take proper photos. And next thing you know, I'm starting to get decent people in. Landed at 420. And I was so happy about that because I'm like, yeah, right, I was right. I don't really want it to, because at the end of the day, the agent's going to drop their fees a little bit just so they can make that money. Because the way the agent works is they'll take half of the first rent from you and half of the first rent from it or them. And then once they do that, see ya, I'm off sipping a frappe. The rest is left up to you. So if you don't know how to speak Greek, or if you don't have anyone over there, mate, enjoy that one. Aside from the fact that there's potentially between a 7 and a 9 hour delay on any given day. You're up at 3 a.m. to try and deal with people. Things close there. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they close at 2. They don't open up. Tuesday, Thursday, they open up again at 5 until 8 or 9 or whatever. Saturday's half a day. Sundays, God's day. Now, if you don't know that and you don't know what to expect, it's a fun time trying to deal with it. And I was like, you know what? I've had enough. I was giving people so much information, and someone said to me, why don't you just do it yourself? Why don't you start this business? And I was shit scared. I was like, people are going to laugh at me. People are going to be negative, which they have been. But I was like, who's going to want to know this? Who's going to, don't people know this? And it turns out that people don't know this. That's why I started what I started. Why Buy in Grace? Because, well, that's what we're doing. I'm buying in Grace. So I set up the website, buyingrace.com.au, decided to call myself a buyer's agent, and I throw out my services. It's been a scary time, as anyone who started their own business knows. I try and be as honest as I can. I'm very humble. I'm not here to sell lies. I'm not here to pretend like I've made millions and I've done it 38,000 times and I'm the top shit. I'm not. Personally, I own 3 properties and I think there's about 7.5. And I say half because one split amongst the family. I'm managing all of those properties. I'll tell you what, if you can manage 7 properties in any country at any given time, I trust that you know what you're doing. So amongst all of them, I've kind of covered all the bases. From commercial to residential, to building, to farmland, to legalities, to everything. What do you want to know? But on that note, I just thought I'd jump on here and give you guys a little bit of a story about me and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Obviously, I want to turn this into a business because I believe I firstly needed to take care of an issue for myself. So if I needed to take care of that issue, 50 other people have that issue that need it being taken care of. And I thought, well, I want to be the person to do that. So buyingrace.com.au to get in touch with me. Buy in Grace on all the socials, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. I think that's all of them. And that's more than enough, to be honest. I'm not a social media baby. And on that note, I want to just say thank you to all the positivity that's been thrown my way and everyone reaching out. I've had a lot of good chats with people. I'm meeting up with a few people. In July, I'm going to be in Greece. I go there once or twice a year, taking care of my own properties. If you're into Saloniki, open invitation, get in touch with me. come and have a look at what I'm doing. Renovating 2 places, rebuilding completely one and renovating another one. And I'm going to film it and show you guys this. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk as well. And I'm more than happy to show everyone this stuff because I know what I'm doing there. But anyway, until then, the amount of negativity I got when I bought my first property, you'd think I was associated with Trump running for president. Like, I was just hated upon, and I have no idea why, because it's been the biggest and best investment I've ever made in my life. That €19,000 property is now sitting at 65.